Hey everybody, it's the Trout and welcome to another episode of the Trout Show. Thank you so much for stopping by. Today I take you up to Portland, Oregon, where I got to visit with a wonderfully talented musician. His name is Eddie Berman. Now Eddie is a singer-songwriter, and he'll tell you if you ask him what his music style is, he'll say, it's kind of folk music, folk rock. But I thought after listening to him, and I think you will too, his music's interesting enough that I consider him like a troubadour. The kind of thing you sit down, you tell people, I can't really describe it to you, but except when I listen to it, it's really good. And that's what Eddie talks about. We talked about his stylings and how he plays guitar. His tunings are completely different than most people, and that's what makes him so unique in his music styles. So make sure you stay to the end of this interview if you want to hear more from Eddie, because I do have the video of him, his current video called Rolling Over Me off his brand new album that will be coming out in January. But before we get to all that, remember, if you like this episode, please give me a thumbs up. And if you would subscribe to the channel, I would appreciate it very, very much. So up next, a guy that you can't really pigeonhole with his music except to say that it's good. The story of Eddie Berman, next on The Trout Show. Okay, I know this is probably going to be a strange question for you right at the beginning, but okay, how do you tune your guitar?
How do I tune? What's the tuning of the guitar? So
Yes.
I
I use alternate tuning, so I see that you always play with the capo, and
mhm.
I'm watching your fingers on some of these songs, and I'm going, okay, I don't know. So what's your tuning?
So all sorts of different ones. I think it was starting when I heard Blood on the Tracks years
Okay.
ago. Is when I started messing.
Bob
I always
Dylan?
playing the Bob Dylan album. He did that whole album was in open D.
Oh,
Um,
okay. I didn't know that.
Before that, I used to do a lot of playing that kind of double thumb finger guitar playing, uh, listening to people like Dave Von Ronk and Mississippi John Hurt. I did a lot of drop D. That was kind of the beginning of
Yeah.
starting to
Yeah.
monkey around with the tuning. Then went to open D, and I did an album called Polyhymnia that was kind of all in open D, and then I moved to open C, and I played in that for a while. I like moving to new tunings because it's sort of like relearning the instrument and finding new voicings
You're
and
100% right. You're 100% correct, because I started out years ago in open E, because I'm one of these guys, you know.
yeah, oh yeah,
So then I learned about open D. Well, I did drop D. Neil Diamond. Neil Young had a song out, Harvest Moon, that was in drop D, and I said, "Oh, I like that." And then I got into one of my songs that's coming up pretty soon is all in D. And now I'm kind of into looking about open G, which of course is the Keith Richards tuning.
oh yeah,
But here's the thing for me, it's all about learning all over again.
yeah,
Because I mean, it's like,
totally.
okay, and then you see people on YouTube that know how to do it, and they've been doing it for a while. They get the really cool tones, and that, of course, that's what Keith has always been able to get, that cool tone drop. He pulls the E string off and only drops it and so when I watch somebody like you play, I always go, okay, that's not your normal tuning. And
Yeah,
because most people, I would think, which is kind of unique for you, I guess, to a certain degree, everybody kind of writes in the key they know they can write in. I'm an A guy, so a lot of stuff I
yeah,
do is in a key of A or something like that. But when you start changing your tunings like that, you still kind of futz around to find what you need. But then you get, like you said, you get these really cool tones on your guitar or voicings that you never had before.
yeah. And it of all this new stuff comes, and in this newest album, I moved to Dadgad,
Okay, I'm familiar
the
with
D
that.
modal,
Yeah.
and that was another thing. If I never really played in that before, and I knew that that's a traditional Irish thing, um, and then was just messing around with it, and I find that that's where the songwriting always starts for me, is from just sitting and playing the guitar, and
Yeah.
especially that kind of finger picking, or the even if it's strumming, it's just kind of, even though it is kind of, I think about it like chords. It's just the melodies kind of baked in to it.
Well,
And
it's unique because you're not doing the same things you would do with standard tuning,
yeah,
and of course I'm a nut about what watching TV and I'll watch something on the movie or something like that, and I'll tell my wife that guy's not really playing guitar, and she goes, "How do you know that?" I said, so,
Yeah, you can tell instantly.
you can tell instantly. One of my favorite. I only found him once. This is off the subject, but it's funny. So a guy in England decided to take some of the movies that were famous, like Crossroads, that what's his face, the guy played against Steve
I
Vai.
was Ralph Macchio, right?
Ralph Macchio. So he actually took the song and put in what he was actually playing, which of course was nothing. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, I reached out to him, he didn't get back with. I said, "Dude, this is hilarious," because
Oh yeah.
oh, I know the other one was Back to the Future. At the end, where
He's playing the
yeah,
Chuck Berry.
Playing Chuck Berry, and he's like, and it's like hilarious. Anyway, so I just like one of those things. So are you you're on the West Coast still? Is that where you are?
West Coast still. Yeah, I was born and raised in Los Angeles, and then about 6-7 years ago moved up to Portland with my wife, and we had a almost 1-year-old at the time, and then now we have another. So now I've got a 7 and a 4-year-old daughter.
Okay. I'm not even going to ask you questions about your city because it's just always in the news all the time. So I refuse to talk politics on here unless I cut it out. It was easy for me when I interview people in the UK when they're going through a lot of prime ministers. I just say, "Do you have a new prime minister this week?" And they all laugh. I go, "Okay."
Yeah.
So I'm not going.
Well, yeah. All I'd say about it is that I think a lot of stuff is overstated.
Oh, it always is. Always is. I'm in the Dallas area, so Texas is always in the news. It doesn't matter what it is. We just there's another Texas story.
Yeah.
So now what I understand is because you had taken out, obviously like a lot of people, you started doing some stuff at home or during the COVID thing.
Yeah.
Were you kind of doing okay? You were doing albums, were coming out all right. And I don't know, and I hate asking a performer this question, but people probably try to pin you. When somebody says to you, "What kind of music do you play?" What do you tell them?
Oh, you get that all the time.
I know you do.
And my answer is always I play folky kind of stuff. I say it's I play it's guitars and lap steel and banjos and accordions and stuff like that. And I say, I kind of leave it at it is one of those things that's it's unless you're playing a straight genre.
Yeah.
And you say, I play blues, I play jazz, I play classical.
Yeah.
That there's all those different monikers. I've always hated the term singer-songwriter for some reason. Mm-hmm. It's just I think it just like conjures up something for me of playing in I don't know, very simplistic playing in a coffee house sort of thing. I don't know why, but
I'm old enough to where they did this all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
So around they didn't play there.
So I've always found it a difficult thing, and folk music always seems like the wrong word because it's sort of everything is folk music, but also what we think of folk. It's not like I'm playing Peter, Paul, and Mary here.
No, and I mean, what's really cool about you, of course, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Your singing voice is just incredibly great. I mean, it's so unique.
Thank you.
And not to make you sound, it was funny. I told John, I said, I thought he's a black dude at first, which is not an insult. It's just such a unique voice. And then I went to your site and I went, "Oh, wait a minute, this is which is okay." Yeah. But and you're right, because the fact is it's got a little rock in it, it's got a little Americana in it, but and I admire people like you because you're not trying to follow a genre, so to speak. You're truly in a unique lane. You're in the Eddie lane because you can't go out, and of course then you get into the whole thing about, well, you won't be able to, nobody will listen to your music if nobody, the labels go, "Oh, nobody cares about that." Can you sound like Taylor Swift? No, I can't. Okay. So it gives you that unique, which is always good and bad at the same time.
100%.
I mean, 100%.
Because and great artistically and bad in terms of, you're right. People want to be able to I think pigeonhole you in that way, and it's hard to find the right acts to tour with. It's hard to find when you're starting out, and it's hard to get on the whatever it's the radio thing or the playlisting on streaming and all that stuff. But in terms of what is the main goal, which is to make something unique, and that was something that early on, I mean, I'm sort of totally self-taught. I mean, I just, my dad played a little bit. He showed me a couple chords when I started pretty late. I didn't start playing the guitar until I was like 15 or 16 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard Freewheelin' Bob Dylan, and it just kind of unlocked something in my brain. And he showed me a couple chords, and then I just kind of went with it, and learned that finger picking from watching. There was an old VHS that I think my dad had, or maybe I ordered it, of Dave Von Ronk teaching you how to play. That's on Green Green Rocky Road.
Okay.
And just sitting there and working that, thumb and that. And as I was starting to write a little bit, and listening to probably too much Dylan, that going like, oh, it just sounds like a really horrible Dylan impression. Yeah. And my voice was all over the place, and I just listened back to some of the stuff from a long time ago, which, is like nails on the chalkboard when you listen to that stuff when you're just starting out. Oh, yeah. And I realized at that point I had to kind of, decouple myself from Dylan, and sort of I had to stop listening to that, and then stop listening to a lot of other stuff. And then I stopped listening to almost anything that's kind of vaguely connected to my genre of music. And I sort of rarely do now. And it feels like you want to kind of go off, you want to be like like a little Madagascar that breaks off of the continent and just becomes its own thing. It evolves in its own world, kind of unpolluted too much from listening to stuff and getting, too, you can't avoid it. I don't purposely avoid it or anything, but I don't seek it out.
Yeah. And I ask people a lot of times, I'll ask younger performer, what's on your playlist? And and it won't be anything close to what they're doing. If they're a blues guy, oh, I was into Beethoven today, and we're like, okay. But I think that's part of it. But the other thing about it is, and you all know this, when people listen to my music, they do want to pigeonhole. Well, I hear a little of this, I hear a little. Oh, of course that I've listened to all those guys, so I'm going to be picking up, Hendrix and Townsend and the little Beatles stuff and all that stuff, and it's all part of what you do. But I think I saw this someplace about you. You are what I call a troubadour, in the music industry, or just a troubadour, because people, it's not like, it's like when they come out to see you, they go, have you seen Eddie? No. What's he like? You got to hear him. And then they hear you, and if they like you, which is about everybody's music, then they go, oh, wow, that's really good. Then try to explain to everybody, well, you got to hear him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it just changes the thing about it. But I think the part for me is that I like that. I was told about a band I interviewed last year that they were progressive bluegrass. And I go, what is that?
Yeah.
And it's kind of a same kind of thing. They play bluegrass, but they don't, they don't have really an electric guitars. It's all acoustic, flat picking and stuff like that. And then you listen to them and you go, okay, I can't pigeonhole them, but what I hear, I like it.
Yeah.
So you during the COVID thing, were you pretty much, when it comes to, you've had several albums out. Do you stay out? I know you said you've been in Portland for a while. Do you tour? I mean, do you get outside your area there? Do you have, and you start going further out? I mean, how has that been working for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's been good. I mean, I was doing some, mainly sort of West Coast touring, and then I've done some supporting stuff. I did it with Tyler Childers, and I did some with Leanne Womack, and I did stuff with the great British singer Laura Marling. And so there, played through the South and up in the Midwest and up in the Northeast. I've done some headlining stuff throughout there, and I played out in Europe with Laura, and then kind of just as things were getting cooking, playing my headlining stuff was very beginning of 2020, and I've had 2 young kids, so I've been trying to minimize it as much as possible until got to the place where they were both going to school full time, which started 6 days ago or something. Which is great. So now it feels like there's kind of a whole open world to me that I don't have anything on the books now, but I'm hoping that when the full album comes out in January, I'll start playing some more here. And then, because so much of my audience has been built through streaming and through just the online world, is that the pockets are really all over the place. The bulk of my listeners are the US, but still there are big pockets in Australia and in Germany and in Spain. And so I'm hoping UK. And so, I think it's still, for a while, I'm not going to be a real, road dog with the two young kids. But I'll definitely be getting out more.
Well, the things have changed so much that people have to go on tour, because I think you post on Instagram some streaming things that happened to you last year or something like that. And I'm sure those big checks, you went out and bought a new car with that streaming check.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's one thing that, since I've signed with the label that I was with, that I've had some songs that really did pick up in that streaming world.
oh yeah, I mean, I saw the numbers, and I mean that happens from people liking you. It's not just, you have to be picked up. And I've never been I don't have a playlist. I don't
Yeah.
even do that nonsense. I just say play what I'm doing, something, play this list or whatever it is, or I'll play my own stuff. But the people that are in tune with streaming and all that, they have all these playlists. But the other thing is, when you bring it out, like you said, in January, it's almost impossible. Well, it's not impossible, but you have to go out and do some touring just to get people to listen to it, to get new people.
Completely.
And
Yeah.
and if you got people behind you, I mean, that's great. But then it's you're right. It's you leave your family behind. You got to do this thing. But if you want to get more people to listen to you, which has always been that way in the business, but
Oh yeah.
yeah, but nobody, when I grew up, it was all about buying records. You'd hear it on the radio. Well, who goes to hey, it's which genre do you want to listen to? You fit in here, you fit in there, and fit in there, and it's like, okay, it's not listening to the top 40, which was popular back then. And then you go out and buy the 45 or the album, and the people need to talk about how much money they were making per album, and then it's like, what album? What's an album?
Yeah.
We still
Yes.
call it that, though. That's what's funny. It's like when you say, I'm going to bring an album out. And then, of course, in line of what you said was the fact is, people don't have I don't know if they have the attention span, or they just don't used to listening to an album. I think now it's like, when I got an album, I knew of course I knew I'm going to listen to the Beatles, say. I sat down and listened to the whole thing.
Oh yeah.
Or the Who, or whatever it was, and as time went by, you listen to the whole thing. People don't seem to want to do that anymore. They just want to hear one or two tunes and then they want to move on, which is fine. But it brings back to what you were saying. I have this song out now, which came out just a few days ago. And then it's like the album will come out in January. And then it's almost like, some people I've heard in the profession, well, don't bring an album out at one time. Just bring out a song. Let it permeate for about a month or two, and then go to the next one. So I assume then, what you said, then you'll be able to do some supporting of this album a little bit after the first
Definitely.
year.
Yeah.
And now, is it all finished, or are you still working on it?
Oh yeah. So the album finished. We recorded it in God, it was back in November was when all the tracking happened. But we did the whole album in just 3 days. We did 13 tracks.
Wow.
And that's kind of going back to the COVID thing, which was interesting, was I'd recorded all my previous albums live. And that was the thing we just kind of discovered when I did this. I did this cover of Dancing in the Dark with the great British singer Laura Marling. And we filmed it, and we thought, well, let's just shoot it live. I mean, before I did one album at home with my accordion lap steel piano player. It's got Gabe Feinberg, amazing player. And we recorded one kind of broken up, and in that way of, we did one in the studio and I'll do my part here and here. And so we recorded this piece just live, all in the room together, no isolation in any way. And we thought, well, hopefully it'll sound good enough for the filming. So we did it, and then we went back to listen to it, and we thought, oh my God, this is so much better than anything we'd recorded before. Just the liveness of it all. So I'd recorded everything live then afterwards, all the albums after that. And then in COVID, we were supposed to record, in May of 2020 or something. And so I thought, okay, we turned this little nursery that was, she was 1 year old at the time, my younger daughter, and turned into a little studio, and then had to make it totally remotely. And luckily, the musicians I play with they produce their own stuff, and they have their own little studios.
Yeah.
And so it was doing it totally differently. And I'd build a drum track, and I'd play to that, and then I'd send it to a real drummer to do his part, and we would just email it all, back and forth to each other. And there were parts about it that were great. It was nice. You can definitely be more discerning than you are when you're right in the moment, and you go, oh, this is interesting what the drummer's doing, and maybe why don't you add a little bit of this to it, or because there is something about being in the studio when it feels a little bit like you're the kind of the writer and director and the actor and the producer of this thing, and you're just trying to remember your own lines, and and just trying to remember my own lyrics is like enough to focus on when I've
had that problem myself. Playing live, and I go,
and then I'm
what's the words of this song? And they'll go, Rick, you wrote this song. Oh yeah,
exactly. Right. And so coming into this new album, the one that's coming out in January, there was this part of me that thought, I don't know, it was nice recording, and I hadn't played with my band in a couple of years at that point. And I thought, I don't know, maybe I'll just record like this from now on, and that'll just be. And I thought, okay, well, either way, let me just get together and let's just rehearse live. And so my band's all down in Southern California, and so I flew down there and we played, and within 90 seconds, probably 9 seconds, I was like, what the hell was I thinking? It was like, this is it. Why? Like it was the veil was sort of lifted. Yeah. And so we went down, we did just a couple rehearsals. We worked with this new drummer, a guy named Chris Wabich, who's also based in LA. And it was a little bit of a self-imposed time restraint, but it was also getting everybody's schedules and the studio time, and everyone's got young kids and tours and all this other stuff. And so we got down there during this crazy rainstorm, down in LA, which was like, it just all felt kind of right. And we were there, and we did all 13 tracks in just 3 days. It was crazy. And it was just, you feel that. I love all the little mistakes and the little things that drive you into different directions, and not being too precious about it, because you kind of go in there and you do it, and there's that feeling of, we could do this 30 times, but I feel like after doing it 3 or 4, it's there, and there it is.
The other thing about it too is when you go in, you're there with your compadres, and you have, I say this to people all the time, you have something in your head how you want to hear it, and you can't, oh, here, let me pull it out of my head, give it to you. But the other thing that happens is stuff happens that you never expect to happen, because once that creative juice starts kicking in, everybody kind of gets in a mode, and it's like, oh wow, let's think about that. And then I think people forget they're in a studio. They're there, but it kind of goes, okay, hey, and I thought about doing this on the drums. Oh yeah, okay. As long as you got somebody sitting there engineering it and producing it for you, and go, no, that's okay. But that camaraderie changes a lot, and then the other thing about it is, of course, this is the good news, and the bad news is you'll never be able to capture that again.
Oh yeah.
That's a moment in time. It's like taking a picture. You could go back to the same place. It's just not the same. The way things have changed so much in what we do now is sending streams to people, or tracks, or whatever you people want to call them, or and I've talked to other people that do the same thing. And it's in your aspect of doing it, because you know what you want to a certain degree. But the other thing is, when you other bring people in, you don't know what they're going to do. That's what makes us the magic.
Yeah.
Because you have something in your mind, and it's like, well, of course it's completely different, because they're a different musician. And that's what I think, there's a certain amount of magic that goes on. And if it happens the way it's supposed to, excuse me, you can always get professional musicians to do something professionally. But there's that moment that, and that something happens. It's just like when you play on stage. You've had this happen to you. play night after night after night. But there's that one night. It's something that's like, boom. Just there's this magic that happens about the music that you're like, oh, I knew you were going to do that. Oh yeah, I knew, and
Yeah.
that's what makes it so much fun.
And that's what I felt like with the musicians that I play with. Of I have the whole thing try to be very very collaborative. I mean, I think about, I think it was I heard Quentin Tarantino say this, that when he was making Reservoir Dogs, and Harvey Keitel was with him, I think really early on, and when they were doing, I don't know if they were doing a table read or they were working with actors in the casting process or something, and Keitel said to him, "Don't tell them anything about what you want them to do, because if you plant anything in their seed, you'll never know what it was that they were going to bring to this thing fresh."
Yeah.
And so just like you were saying, I have an idea of what I wanted to sound like in my head, or what an idea I have,
Yeah.
of what it could be. But I bring it to, and I've been playing with the Gabes, as they're called, Gabe Feenberg and Gabe Davis, who are just, incredible musicians. Gabe Davis is upright bass and electric bass, and he does a lot of bowed stuff with with his double bass. And then Feenberg, who's a incredible guitarist and piano player, plays the B3 organ, and he studied the trombone at Berklee School of Music, and I mean he can just kind of pick up anything. Amazing accordion player, and working with this new drummer, and there was that kind of magic of we did these couple quick rehearsals, and I never played with Chris before, but I just had a phone conversation with him and listened to some other stuff he'd done and thought, okay, I think this will work. We did a couple quick rehearsals, just recorded them. I just put my phone out to get, capture what we were doing. And I was listening back on the way to the studio as we were going to go record everything live, and all of them were sounding great. And the only one was this song, Rolling Over Me. And I was listening to what we had done, and it was sounding like Easy Like Sunday Morning. And I was like, this is terrible. This is this is awful. And I don't think we started with it, but we went kind of later in the day on the first day, and we thought, all right, let's kind of run through it and we'll just figure it out kind of on the fly.
Yeah.
And we're playing it, and it's a little shapeless. And then Chris said, okay, I think I have an idea. And he brought this whole, there's a great kit. We recorded it at I think just as the headphones cut out, I was telling you about Pierre de Reeder, who owns the studio that and he's engineered and mixed all of our albums, and he's amazing. He was in that band Relocated, and he has a whole bunch of studios in LA, and he's just this place called 64 Sound in Highland Park down in LA. And so Chris has just got this grab bag of stuff, like drummers have at times, and he'll pull out, box full of coins and all this kind of stuff. And he just kind of, Frankenstein this little kit together, and he just started playing something. And I remember someone said, "Do you want to go through it?" And I said, "No, let's just go. Let's just he'll start, and let's just go, and let's see kind of what happens." And we did 3 takes. And I think the take they were all pretty different. So we couldn't do any, combining of the takes in any way. And it's all, I never record the click track or anything, which was another thing about recording during COVID, where everything is just like on the beat. I'm like, I really don't like that. I'm really happy with the remote album that I made. It's called Broken English, and there's a lot of great stuff about it, but it was getting back to that live thing. And so, and I think it was the second take of Rolling Over Me, and we just went in and we're like, all right, man, there it is. Moving on.
Well, it's a great tune. I think it's just something unique about it. I don't know what it is. As soon as I was sitting here last night with my soon-to-be 20-year-old granddaughter, she came over and saw us, and I said, "Hey, I'm going to interview this guy tomorrow. I want you to listen to this song." And she goes, "Hey, I like that song." And she listens to music that I don't even know. I mean, because she's not your typical 20-year-old. I mean, she's not, and because I'll say, "Who are you listening to?" And it'll be, she likes kind of music that's kind of older, but it's a brand new band. Because I said, if you tell me who you want me to interview, maybe I can find him and interview him. So, but I listened to that, and she goes, "I really like that tune." I said, "Well, then you'll be able to, you'll be able to listen to it all the time.
That's
Because I
great.
said, my new album's coming out. She goes, oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
She goes, oh,
It's so funny. I know it is. I always love that like it doesn't really matter how prolific somebody's parent is. It's you'll always just be mom or dad, and even the level of like I don't want to listen to it or I don't have.
no,
Yeah.
and I understand that. I understand it completely. I think one of the things that I like about your music is, as I said earlier, you can't pinpoint it, but it's something that's really unique. You have a niche, you know, and that is a group of people that like your music because it is unique. And that's what I love about doing what I do, is because I get to introduce people to you. When I started this out, I really wanted two things. I wanted to be able to talk to musicians like yourself so we could talk about how's you tuned your guitar? Uh,
Yeah.
uh, but also let people hear people they've never heard, because it's hard there's so much music out there, as you well
So
know,
much. Yeah.
that you're trying to figure out what it is, and people can sit at home and do stuff, and a lot of it's just crap. And you're like, how do you weed through that? And I said, well, that's just what I do and luckily for us that we both have the same person we know that can kind of press it out. So the song out now, and then have you got a official date for the January release, or are you just
Yeah.
kind
So
of
that's
playing?
that's January 19th. So the label's kind of like what you were talking about. They like to do this kind of that slow rollout thing of. So we put out two singles before this.
Okay.
Um, one called "Looking In" and another one called "Mine All Mine." And so we're going to do two more singles, um, October and December, I guess. I think, and then the album will come out January 19th.
And what's the album title?
It's called "Signal Fire."
That's the hardest thing for me, to sit around and think about what you want to call it. And then
I,
people want to
I've
know why you
always,
called it. And they're like,
always,
what?
yeah. Which is that's the same. Another songwriter friend of mine was saying. I was telling her about how much I hate um, naming things, and she says because it's so reductive, and you're like, that's exactly it. It is so trying, especially writing these kind of abstract um, songs that are sort of like to me these kind of complex things. Trying to put a little two-word. That's why I always just go, kind of like what's said, what's repeated in the chorus, or what's every once in a while I'll come up with a good title. And then this one comes from a line in one of the songs. That I think the only title of a song I have on this one that's not just what's the word that's repeated.
Right. Yeah.
It's called Mare Imbrium, which is the name of one of the areas on the moon, craters on the moon.
Yes, I know.
And so that was one of the lines. Had the word "signal fire," and it's kind of as I was going through all the lyrics, I go, that sounds like. And then you start to kind of piece it back, and go, okay, I don't know, I see. This is actually pretty good. Like this will work. This works for the.
But there's usually, I think most of the people, when they do it, when I do my album titles, I try to think about it. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter, and
Yeah.
it's all about the music inside. And if I've gone through, I'm on my fourth one now, and I don't think people even pay any attention to what I call them,
I
and
mean,
you're
people
looking.
can't remember them. Where they go, what's
No, I
the
mean,
one? It's like he's wearing a
it's like,
hat on the cover.
so I said, when I was younger, I always thought I had my top, I knew my first three albums, what they'd be called.
Oh,
But then
really?
well,
Yeah,
yeah, and then of course it changed.
yeah,
And the one was, I'd bring it out for what my first one was going to be called.
yeah.
The
What are the
second,
three titles?
yeah, well, I can't remember the first one. Well, the first one I did was called, this is back in '94. I would have been home sooner, but I lost my way.
That's good.
And then then it was years later, and then I thought I'd do the second album would be called Oro for gold, because I did the first album went so good that I did Oro, and then the third one
Yeah,
would
it's
be
great.
the second album would suck, and it would be called, and then the third would be called False Sense of Security, because you thought everything was going to be great.
I love that
So,
it wasn't just the titles, but the whole career trajectory was mapped.
so this one is
Bottoming
actually,
out and then
yeah,
coming back,
you got to
and
come
then
back. This one,
yeah,
I don't even know where it
you
came
become
out.
a Buddhist at one point. And, yeah,
This one's called Chasing Sunlight in a Dark Room.
Oh, that's great.
And it's more about sitting in my room, writing songs and recording them, chasing sunlight in a dark room, and you hope,
Yeah.
you never know what's going to happen. So, but that's where it is. So, but I'll talk to John about anything I need. Most of the stuff I'll pull your video off. I can pull that off YouTube and put
Terrific.
stereo sounds quality. And here's the last thing I always tell everybody I interview. I only have one rule about this. If you ever come to Dallas, you got to give me free tickets. That's the
You got
key.
it.
So that's the key. So I wish you a lot of success. I want to tell you thanks very much for talking to me.
Thank you very much for having me.
We'll see you. Take care. Have a great day.
Thanks very much. You too.
Bye.
On the summit, it was golden, but only standing for a moment. The smoke came up and was rolling over me. She was there, inside it. My gilded eyes were blinded. The light came up and was rolling over me. And in the shadows, I stopped her. She bathed me in the holy water. The tide came up and was rolling over me. Rolling over me. Rolling over me. Rolling over time me. Time to the foothills, and time to the tundra, and its copper stairs. Oh, and tie me to my ever-loving woman, 'cause I'm yours. Copperhead uncoiled, I dug my hands into the soil. Life came up and was rolling over me. She pulled me down into the circle. The earth savage, and bird was raging and raving and rolling over me. Rolling over me. Rolling over me. They're rolling over time me. Time to the seafloor. Time to the silence and every dying star. Oh, and tie me to my ever-loving woman, 'cause I'm yours. When the scores are counted, I head back into the mountains. The sound of nothing is rolling over me. I'll soon hear the thunder. I'll soon feel the hunger for you to hold me down and be rolling over me. Rolling